We're on.
Okay, well, once again, welcome to meeting number 1230, Monday the 11th of October. As I just mentioned then, John Veltmeyer, who would normally be chairing the meeting, and it was great to see him last time, feeling a bit ill from some medical attention he's been getting, and so what I'll just do is read the list of apologies, and we can add to it if anyone knows others who might like to be here. John Veltmeyer, Les Carlisle, Matthew Lloyd, Ross Bradley, Joe Detling, Ron Bolden, Barry Scott, Mary Brad, Robert Tonner, Bob Clinson, Ian Seisland, Lindy Hall.
And we'll add Jim Noble as well.
Yeah, okay.
He's had a colonoscopy today, so he's not even at the house.
It was good to see both Ian and Lindy there at the Ander Fair over the weekend, and helping as they did. Is there any general business you'd like to bring up at this stage? I have none, but no doubt we can comment down the track later on, or even just around the supper table. I understand the coin industry is thriving, and certainly from the Ander Fair I was very gratified. Just moving on to the report on the Ander Fair. Last time I was at the Ander Fair, I can't remember, 2 years ago or something, in the middle of COVID, or one side or the other. There was hardly anybody there, could have thrown a rock and not hit anybody. But this time, especially on the Saturday morning, with queues coming round out the door and halfway to Town Hall Station, I thought, wow, this is good. And so many kids were there too with their parents, and they're obviously keen on seeing what's going on, and I congratulate Ander for the great thought of giving an activity for the kids that brought them in, because bring in the kids, bring in the parents, and that's what you need. So I think it was a very good Ander Fair, and I'm feeling better too, because I sometimes get the feeling that numismatics is dying, but no, all these kids, they love it, so hopefully the future's good for it. But as for ANS, Rod signed 5 new members up, for a trial period, for no fee whatsoever. And I was hoping to be able to welcome them here and have them stand up and tell us what they collect, but not a one turned up.
Not yet, anyway.
Or hasn't so far, anyway. But we nevertheless got $750 for those medals that were right out in the tray. That's the sort of rectangular Captain Cook ones and the proclamation medals. And they were attractive, but they're both of them, to get someone interested in them, they did need a bit of explanation of what they were and so on, especially with the proclamation medals. I think the kids had never heard of it, so anyway, this works.
The most interesting one to get them really hooked was to talk to them about the pillar dollar and explaining the pillar dollar and the 8 real and the columns and what next, and saying, this is where our dollar sign came from.
That's
and
right.
You can see the lights going off. And on Sunday, Grant had a pillar dollar there, so you say, go over there and look at the real one.
That's right. Yes, there's a lot of interest there. Of course, that's what the holy dollar type coins, the holy dollars were made of too, and you can go into it, and makes me realise probably lacking in many people's education, but it takes a while, I guess, because I guess it's harder and harder to own a set of proclamation coins. They're not that impossible, especially if you don't mind not having a big Joanna. But
there was one there.
Yeah, you could have bought one there. That's right. I saw some. Okay, so does anybody else want to say anything about the fair, the Ander Fair? We had a good time. Yeah.
Well, we sold a few sets of the proclamation coins.
Yeah, well,
I mean, the gentleman who bargained with us, who got the full 20, but we told 2 other sets. One to one member who I thought was a new trial member who was going to be here, but didn't turn up, and another one to Mark Thompson, who actually ran the Ander Fair.
Good. That's good. No, they're attractive, and
$750.
I just relate my little story of I was pleased myself for actually selling one of them, because this little girl, about 8 years old, came along with two parents there, and she looked in. I told her the story as simply as I could about the proclamation and all that. And I said, well, do you like one? He said, yes. And she looked at the parents and they nodded. So I said, well, what would you like? This is a nice one. There was one with a dollar, bill $1. Oh no, I'd rather have a gold one, she says. So, yes. I sold her a half Joanna one. And I said, now do you want a silvery background, a copper? No, we quite like the copper. That's what she got. Hope that's pleased, and hope it'll maybe, you know, be the subject of an ex-school project. You never know where things go from there. Okay, our next meeting is at the Naval Numismatics. I guess that'd be on this at 7:30. Is that the normal time for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That'll be the 14th of November, and Jim will go through the highlights of his and interest of his November auction. And you know, Jim's catalogues are getting thicker and thicker and thicker, heavier and heavier and heavier. It's not quite so big this
No,
one.
it's only about 4,000 lots.
All right.
The catalogue should be there this time because
Well,
it's a week before the auction starts. So
that should
should have all been mailed out.
Anyway, that's always
we're
always
still
a treat.
sequencing
So,
now and lot numbering early next week. I imagine probably be a week after that or so will be the catalogue to be out.
I guess the message is to come that if you're going to go to that, don't come here. Go to Macquarie Street. Right.
Easier parking.
Now, our own auction, auction 49, went very well, thanks to Rod, with sales over $3,000, and apparently it was quite hectic at the last minute there, people overbidding each other.
Yeah.
But there are a few unsold unsold lots, I suppose, and
I thought you said
talk
20,000.
to Rod if you want. About this place, it's apparently no further movement on it, so looks like we're going to be here for a while. The Phyllis House I'm talking about. So, yeah, we'll just assume that it's business as usual until we're told otherwise. Okay, the topic for the night is ships and navigators. Reminds me of that Immortal Mine and the Blues Brothers movie, you know. We have two, what type of music do you have here? Well, we have both types, country and western. Right? So here we have both types, ships and navigators. And I hope everyone's brought in because it should be easy after all. Ships and navigators is what caused Australia to be, you know, found to the world. Who's got something for the show?
Oh, I've got something to show one.
Okay. Now, I think also we always combine these things with recent acquisitions and anything else you've got of interest. And, you know, seeing there's only a few of us here, let's yeah, keep it going for a while. So anything you've got, what's that? No? No, important. No. So I've got something, but I'll save mine up till the last. So, have you got something, Graham? Okay. No? Danny? No?
I think Frank's got something.
You got something?
Yeah, I've got
Mine are lying on the bed. I won't tell you why.
All right. Doesn't matter. We'll talk about them. Don't have to show. Tell is okay besides show and tell. All right. Do you want to have a go, Graham, first? And let's see what we go.
I was going to defer to the gentleman.
No, you go first.
Despite what you just said, I found it a bit hard to find anything on navigators as such, but
You made it.
probably was looking in the right direction.
How do you do? Glad you could make it. We were saying we hope one of our new trial volunteers, members comes.
My name's John Grant. I've had a bit of an interest in coins for a long time. I got an accumulation over years, and I went to the coin fair the other day, and I thought I'd come along tonight and see what you guys do here.
Welcome, John.
You specialise?
No, all I can say.
When you got your,
We're in business, and we used to just throw away the silver coins, you know, and put them away, and pennies and notes, and I have collected things from coin fairs over the years, and
And John said he knew where Brisbane Street is because he was a cabbie.
I was a cabbie.
that doesn't
I was a
matter a lot.
bookmaker's clerk, and I was in the markets. Now, I just asked all those learned fellows if they knew what a £10 note was called. it was called a brick, as you might all remember, and a £5 note was a spin.
Yeah.
And I've got a photo on my phone of what a monkey was, and that was £10 notes, £100 was known as a monkey. This was all in cash businesses. To the general public, maybe they never, but I think a lot of people would have heard of a brick for $20, for a $10, for a £10 note. Yeah.
Stanley trays.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I've never been involved with $100, so I don't know anything about a monkey. I'm probably the monkey, that's it.
Yeah, okay.
You're a cabbie, yeah?
Well, I still own a cab,
That's two
unfortunately.
of us.
I just saw the webinar tonight. They're going to give us 100,000 for our plate. The last money we got from them was taxable. They gave us 20,000 for plates that cost up to 300,000 or 400,000, and that was taxable. This time they'll say, because we're taking away your business rights altogether, it'll be a capital event, so you'll get the whole lot. Anyway, that's how it is. That's life, mate, you know. I started driving a cab in 1965 when it was still pounds, shillings and pence. And of course I was in the markets with my father before then, and I took on bookmaking, bookmaker's clerk in the mid-70s. I haven't driven a cab since 2016, but I still have all the credentials to take a cab out tomorrow if I wanted to.
Have a seat,
Well,
John.
have a seat, have a
And
seat there, and we're
So,
just, we're
that's-
just up
that's
to the
it.
stage in the proceedings where Grant is going to, Grant, sorry.
Frank.
Frank,
That's Grant.
Frank is going
Just
to.
about to,
Frank is starting off.
just about to be the first talker on the subject of ships and navigators.
Well, the first one is, I think we'd all be pretty much familiar with, is the 1988 50 cents with highlighting Cook's Endeavour, which was a three-masted bark, it depends on how you like to spell it. It's had 25 Duralon sails, the main mast was 28 metres high, and the ship was 143 foot long. It was originally launched in 1764 as a coal carrier, and then acquired by the government and turned into an exploring ship. I'd say is probably the best way of describing it. And it first departed Plymouth in August 1760 and reached Tahiti to observe the transit of Venus in 1769 and reached Australia in 1770. So I think we're all pretty much familiar with Cook, so everyone else will probably have something on him as well. The other one is, as far as navigators, was Bass and Flinders. That's on a 1998 50 cent. That they circumnavigated Tasmania in 1798 and then circumnavigated Australia from 1801 to 1803, and in the little tiny ship, well I don't know if you'd really call it a ship because it was only, they call it Tom Thumb, and it was only about 3 metres long. So how the hell they survived in a couple of years and two blokes and something that, you know, not much longer than the table, you know.
Is that when they had the cat with them?
No, no, that
Trim.
it was a separate one altogether. I think on that one, I remember reading about it, but I'd hate that have had the cat on on that one. They did. Flinders did go on a slightly larger ship at a later date. That's, the next one, I think we've probably all seen the commemorative $10. This is basically what I've got is basically on ships rather than navigators. That's the depicts the Supply, which was one of the 11 ships of the First Fleet. I'm not quite sure whether it's at supposed to be in Sydney Harbour or Botany Bay. It doesn't explain very well. Yeah. Then on our $5 note shows the ship shown as one of a number called Waverley, And I was unable to find anything else on it at all, you know, how Google let me down, or I didn't follow Google far enough, but apparently this Waverley, there was quite a number of
It
ships.
says it on the flag, doesn't it, or something?
Yeah,
It says Waverley on it somewhere.
somewhere in the note there, somewhere there's a little message apparently, so I couldn't find that.
It was on a flag somewhere in one of the notes.
Yeah.
This one.
Might have been that.
No.
Yeah, there's one of them that does have a name in it somewhere there, but I have heard of it, but I've never actually tracked it down myself.
Under $5 note. What's that for? You say that there?
Of course, there's other ones moored up there, but that's the one that's sort of highlighted.
His name's
It's
there,
hard to pick up, isn't it?
just on the foreshore above the head, in between the buildings of the sun.
And the next one's a $100 with showing Sir Douglas Mawson, who was an Antarctic explorer, navigator. He was a member of the Sir Henry Shackleton's expedition to Antarctica in 1907. He reached the South Magnetic Pole in January 1909, and then from 1911 to 1914 he was on another expedition, and from 1929 to 1931 he directed the combined British, Australian and New Zealand Antarctic expedition. Once again we can have that 12 months on the ice. So obviously you put these things in your bag and they get end up all over the place. I did have them in order. So they're a Brazilian 5 Cruzeiros, and that's just a painting by Antonio Pereiras of the conquest of the Amazon, but there's no detailing of the ship, but just the fact that it's a ship on and out will fit the category, hopefully. And we have a German 10 Deutschmark note. The reverse shows a training ship, Gorsch Foch, and it symbolises cosmopolitanism. I presume it was a Navy training ship. Once again, just couldn't find much detail. It appears to be a steel hull, but not too sure on that. And we have again a Greek 50 drachma. It's a painting by him. Boulaba, hero of the War of Independence of 1821, ordering cannons to fire on the fortress of Palamidi. Once again, no details of the ship, but it just happens to be there, so they'd be the one that would be, he'd be telling the to fire the cannons on the fortress. Which one? Yeah, this one, Rod might be able to help us out on this one. That's the Hong Kong $5. Just shows
Local
a
junk.
a
A load
Chinese,
of junk.
a Chinese junk and a sampan moored in the water with mountains in the background. I've always thought one and the same, a sampan and junk, but
No, sampan's is the small one.
But when you look-
The junk goes by sail, the sampan goes by oar.
yeah. And this one I thought was a bit odd was the Bank of India. And, that's a 10 rupee, and the reverse. The thing that got me was that the value of the note is written in 14 languages or dialects, so that everybody can know what they got. And it just
There's probably one coming to Easter Island.
and it's just a oval in the middle, surrounding a seascape with a country craft, as they told you. But, again, no details. And followed by Vietnam, 500 dong. Again, just ships at the dock in Haiphong port. So I presume they're all take it that they'd be freighters. And then a Norwegian 10 kroner. The reverse is Niels Flakstad's sculpture of the fisherman with a ship and cranes in the background. No details again, but I presume again they were freighters. That's all I had on ships.
Anybody else on ships and navigators before we move on to the other
One on
topic?
ships here.
Yeah,
This coin is pretty rough, but it's not too bad. You can actually look at it carefully in the right light, it's not too bad. This is one of the oldest coins that come from a known shipwreck. It's a Roman coin, and the story goes back that this was a group of coins that were sold by G. Nelson in Belgium in 1994 from sale 37. And Rick Washonki, who is probably the collector who has more Roman coins of the Republic than anyone else who, in terms of quality, sold, he's dead now unfortunately, but he sold his collection through Rousseau in Switzerland. And it was a beautiful bound volume if you ever get to see it. There's one in our library, there was library one at home. This has had a prow on one side,
yeah.
and it is a coin that's an ass or thereabouts. Anyhow, what happens, this hoard was found on a shipwreck that was wrecked off the, as it says here, on an old hoard found on the Italian coast. It was a seafaring ship and it had quite a number of these bronze coins on it, some many hundreds of them, and also got a hold of a batch of them. Most are pretty corroded. Rick Sholke bought the lot, and I finished up buying some of them and a lot of these other coins as well, as added to my Roman Republican bronze collection. And I thought, well, there's something with an interesting character. This is one. It's an envelope that goes with it. It sort of came from Rick Sholke. And it's a coin, if you turn it around 90 degrees, anyhow, that's his handwriting on that. And that's got a head on it. If you turn it around a little bit more, you might
The other side
Keep going.
twisted 90 degrees.
I know.
Yeah.
So you got
That side or more?
to turn it a little bit more. It's probably Saturn or one of those gods indicating a lower denomination. I've never actually pursued it too much at this stage, but you can see there's a head on it, see? On the other side you have the prow, which is typical of these bronze coins from Rome and the Republic around about 200 to 100 or so BC. So this shipwreck probably took place, from the range and scope of them, somewhere around about 100 BC. So, yeah, it's nice to have a coin you're looking for something, a shipwreck, that comes from a shipwreck that's over 2,000 years old. No one wreck, you know. This is one of them. So that's my little contribution to tell you about a shipwreck and a shipwreck. Now turn it around a bit more,
Yeah, that's
more.
the,
There you-
keep
there you-
going a bit more.
There you can
That's
see
it.
the prow. See how it goes up? That's the front of the Roman galley. And it's underneath you can see the words R-O-M-A, or it's Roman.
Rome,
And
yeah.
above that you've got parts of the superstructure on the galley. You only got the fore part of the galley, you only got part of it. I didn't even bother researching what the denomination is, but it's probably something like a, well, take a Numismatic or something like that. Anyhow, don't worry about it. It's just an interesting coin for the Shipwreck Association. Right.
Don't you?
Well, has anyone's got another?
You keep going, Cole.
All right, recent acquisition. I'm often amazed handling so many coins at how people describe their coins. Sometimes they write lengthy little tomes about each coin, they put them in a packet. Others they just scribble something on it and that's about all you've got on it. And having seen hundreds and hundreds of collections and catalogued many hundreds of collections, it's been interesting to sort of stop and say, let's look at some of these people who are methodical in their collecting. I've picked 4 collectors to sort of show you their methodology, if you like. The first one is an interesting one by a man who we refer to as Dr. Flynn. Dr. Flynn was the eccentric man who built up a phenomenal quantity of coins. in such large numbers, it's very hard to sort of come to full realisation of how he had the time to put all these things together. He never worked basically, but he was the main benefactor from the Tattersalls lottery, so I think he was not short of $1. In fact, I know he wasn't short because he was got $250,000 every 6 months or 3 months, 40 years ago. So it was easy money for him, and he just bought coins, and that was his position. I remember him coming in the office once many years ago, and he picking out coins on the trays at Noble Numismatics, and he'd be picking out one, he'd probably take up nearly half a tray of coins he's picked out. And I was quite impressed with that. I kept bringing, he was crippled unfortunately, so I had to bring the trays to him on the counter or in the office. And then they got to the point where he's picked out the third Roman denarius of an empress called Plautilla. I said, this is the third one you're buying. He said, I know, and I want them all. So he didn't care. Now, he, in his earlier days, he got a doctorate degree from Canberra University, National University, and some of the Indian coins, he started to go to a lot of trouble. He put them all in envelopes, and then he wrote, let's show the envelope so you can see that he described them quickly what's on the inside. So he wrote something, you see it's from the ANU, he just must have got hold of large quantities of these envelopes. But then on some of his coins he wrote long lengthy tickets, a card. Now mind you, these are Indian coins, so you're not going to be able to read it, so just to make sure you read it, he has the Hindi, and then he has the translation into English, and then he translates it again from their language into a readable meaning what all the letters mean. So you put that on there, and these are the coins he's referring to. So this is the name of the ruler. He was the Sultan of Delhi. He's got a date, 716 to 720. These are little jittals, 3 jittal pieces, Billion coins, and there's a bit of a story there about them. Then he goes on to the obverse, describes the obverse as it's readable on the coin, and then he translates that into the written out version of it in English, what those letters mean, which means of course nothing again to any of us, and then underneath it what it says in English. And then he does the reverse. Now these are what the coins look like. These are not really great expensive numismatic specimens, but they're the ones he picked out for that particular discussion. And he probably, well, as a coin they're probably worth about $5, $10 each, sort of thing. You know, so he went to this particular trouble. And I think his project was to do this to all his coins. Well, he didn't get round to many, but this is one of the ones, and there's another one here of the same sort of story. What I'm trying to show you is the fact that people go to extraordinary lengths to learn about their coins, and this is an example of it.
Yeah, Colin, are these Mughal coins, those ones?
No, these are Sultans of Delhi. Getting into the picture, India, before the rise of the Mughal emperors in the beginning of the, the middle of the 16th century, before that for 3 centuries were a whole group of sultans who operated major areas. Now, the biggest group was called the Sultans of Delhi, who obviously started around Delhi, but they expanded and they operated or controlled half of India. But there are others too, the Sultans of Bengal, and then there was minor ones, the Bahmanis and others. So we had a whole series of sultanates who were free Mughal emperors.
But the language though, is it Farsi or is it something
Well,
else?
it's Arabic, I think. The later ones, the Mughal emperors was Persian. So the Mughal emperors wrote in Persian, but here they wrote in this, well, it's probably in Arabic.
Arabic, you think?
Yeah. This is another envelope.
Well, as I said, I'm at the Indian Road, there 14 languages.
Now, his meticulous order of things was that it got out of hand. I mean, he had great goals. I mean, if you can imagine a whole collection put together with these written detailed cards, there'll be a lesson that everyone who ever collected these coins again will know what he exactly got. Well, this was part of one lot in the noble auction of this particular person's collection. I thought, well, they're worthy of showing you the degree of emphasis he made on it. On the other hand, we have a former member of our society, Laurie Sherwin, who meticulously recorded details of every one of his coins on a envelope. Now, show that. This is one of the ones from the sale that I bought. Some of the coins were bulked up, so you get them like this. This is showing you his envelope. The coin that's there is quite a rare coin called Arab Sasanian, and his group of those coins were the first time a large group of those things ever appeared in a country. Arab Sasanian coins are the first Arab coins that were coming out after the takeover after Muhammad around the Arab world, and they were copying some of the Sasanian coins, which looked like these things with large silver flans with the head of the ruler on one side and the fire altars on the other side. But you can see he wrote all this. He described it all, and on the back of the envelope he tells you where he got it from. And being very clever about it all, he wouldn't tell you how much he paid for it. But what he did was he wrote it in Greek. But if you know your Greek numbers, you've got it straight away. It tells you that he paid probably in this case 300 something pounds for it from Baldwin's Islamic auction, and he tells you the date and so forth. So this is quite a rare coin. I mean, there was such a good lot of it, I bought quite a number of them. And so that's one of his tickets. Now another one. So a similar ticket. See, all these coins were mounted the same way. This one is a Roman coin. You can take it out and show them. It's Emperor Valens, a Siliquia. He briefly describes the coin. The coin's inside the packet. And show the reverse now. Not the reverse of the coin, but the reverse of the packet. And if you look at Kip, he talks about, puts on the reverse of the envelope, the reverse of the coin, so it makes it easy. You've got to turn it over anyhow. And then he tells you where he got it from. In this case, he tells you he bought it from Italo Vecchi in 1972 and paid £3 or £8 for it. So he kept a record, which gives a pedigree. And the importance of keeping a detailed inventory or description of your coin on some sort of record is that when people later than you get it, they can get an idea where it comes from and who owned it and all the rest of it. And it's become very fashionable these days to have a pedigree for all your coins, if you can get one. Obviously, a lot of coins we have don't have pedigrees. You've found it in change or whatever it may be, but on good ancient coins and so forth, the pedigree is probably worth another 50% of the value of the coin if it's a good pedigree. I think David would agree on that. Now, this one's again another interesting one. This has got a couple of extra things in it. It's got the same story on the back of the coin. There's pass that ticket over. That's a CB ticket. So instead of throwing it away, he kept the CB ticket, and here's the coin. So not only do we have the pedigree of this coin going back to 1979, he bought it in CB Coin and Metal Bulletin in April 1979. The item number, it's got the, I don't know, it was £20 he paid for it. And of course the front of the envelope tells you about the description of the coin. So he's got a pretty good record, and he kept a pretty good record of his 7,000 or 8,000 coins, or 6,000 coins he had. Not all the coins were sold by us. As you may or may not know, part of his will requested they be given to the Powerhouse Museum, and a number, they picked out the ones they wanted. They said the rest we don't want. And, so there was a bit of a disjointed effort, but that's what happens. So my advice on that, don't leave your collection if it's important enough to an institution, because sometimes they don't want it here. And it's then left to your lawyers or something to sort it all out. Now this one here is a bit of local interest. Same, these are all part of one group, these three coins, so it was quite a good buy at the time, some hundreds of dollars it cost me. But on this one's another one of Valens. Tell you what it is. On the back of it, it tells you that he bought it from the MCC sale. Now, the reason why I put that in there is to show you that it tells you the MCC, Metropolitan Coin Club sale of 1975. There's a date, 18th of January, and he paid $7 or something for this one. And you know, if you bought something from our auction here, and that was finished there a couple of days ago, you should get a record of where you got it from. So it passes on to people down the track that, oh, they bought it from the ANS auction there, and so on, so such a day. Okay, now then we go to another more illustrious collector who literally had thousands, 10,000 more coins, and his way of keeping a record of the coins was not writing detailed descriptions. He did when he wrote his catalogue, that's BCD. He has a coin and he writes little tickets for each one. Every coin gets a little round ticket. This was a coin of Thessaly from Tranon. He doesn't tell you the date, but I know it's 3rd century. But he tells you on the back of it that he, well, you can look at it like that. I just grabbed a couple. I've got quite a number of these coins of his. So there's a nice portrait piece there of, I'm not quite sure who it is. Maybe Asclepius, maybe not, maybe Poseidon, maybe Zeus. Anyhow, he bought that coin, ex-Thessaly, June 1992. He paid 50 Swiss francs for it. On the other side of that ticket, he tells you it's set from Thessaly and Crown. Some of these tickets, and I've got hundreds of these tickets, but he, for the coins, will go into great detail telling you a bit about the coin and the significance of a particular coin. So the little ticket, he could write very tiny, like John Pett used to be able to write very tiny on the ticket. Another one of his coins is this one here. It's from Thessaly again. It's from a place called Lamia. What I'm trying to do is inspire all of you as collectors, and I know obviously some of us do, keep a fairly good record of where you get coins from. Put them in a way that identifies the coin and the ticket. This is from the Thessaly again, from a place called Lamia. Very tiny little coin, but beautiful condition, as you can see. And on the other side of the coin and the ticket, again we are told, he puts a weight down too, by the way, most of these. It's, he's still alive. Basil's about a year younger than me, and we correspond with each other. He's probably the greatest collector of Greek coins of the last half century. And so he tells you, again, he got this from some guy, obviously a collector in 1996 for 35 Swiss francs, or shall we say from somewhere, someone found it or done something. But often these tickets tell you that he bought it from some auction, or bought it from some dealer, and he did this and did that, and who the dealer was and all the rest of it. But I'm only just showing you as an example. All these tickets are those little round ones. And then we get the people like myself, who likes to sort of put the detail down for my naive descendants, who won't know what the hell these things are I've been collecting. So I write a, this one has a ticket from it. Put that on the screen, and that on the screen. Now, to type up a detailed story about your coin, there's the coin, so I'm going to put it on there too. Obviously this comes with a Baldwin ticket that had £100 on it. It came out of Naval Numismatic auction where we were selling it previously from the Flynn collection. Now, the reason why I do this is, and of course I have a little code there to tell me what sale it is, and then underneath there's a little other code that tells me how much I paid for it. But the details are there for my naive children, grandchildren, or whoever gets these coins later on, has an idea, oh, I know what this coin is, and they do their research that's already done, and pass it on to some dealer. Now,
All they want to know, Col, is how much it's worth.
that's all, but that does tell them if they know my code.
That they want to know your
£100
code.
They know it's not going to be one they sell for $5, you know, otherwise they're off their head. That's one. Of course, this is a big project. I'm going to spend the next 75 years doing this. I've been doing it for the last 60 or 70 years now, so it's getting slowly there. This is a Byzantine coin, another Byzantine. I just picked the Byzantine one because I do it for Greek and Roman and everything else. Now the number there, 831, which is just underneath that coin there, is a numbering in sequence of these Byzantine coins I'm cataloguing in bronze. So that's the 831 one of those. But I've got probably 3,000 of things. That's a long way to go on those. Here's another one. I did these today actually. This is number 840, so you can slip that one in there too. That's a phallus from Constantinople, meant from the Roman Emperor Tiberius Constantine, who was a ruler for only 4 years in 578 to 582. And on the right hand, give you the background on this, that M stands for the phallus, that's a denomination of 40 numai. The CON underneath it, A, that's the letter A, that looks like a bit like a delta, is standing, tells you that's Constantinople.
Mm-hmm.
NO, A-double-N-O on the left-hand side means year, and on the right-hand side you have the year. Now that funny thing that looks like a loopy thing, I don't know, like a G I suppose, is because it's got a curve at the top, is the number 6. You've got a 1 after it means it's number 7. So it's the 7th year of the reign. Now you say, hang on, he's only ruler for 4 years, but he was a smart one. He sort of said, I'll start at 4 for my first year. So he goes from 4 to 8. Now, it was because he had some lower level consulship or whatever, he sort of figured that's why I say he became emperor, so that's what happens. Now the other one's a similar one from the same ruler. I had a batch of these I was doing now at the moment, and this was a coin that comes from a rather interesting place called Rome. Now most people don't think the Byzantine Empire had anything to do with Rome, because that's what they were on the east. Constantinople was its headquarters, but there was a very short period in the 6th century when they conquered Rome, and obviously it was a military occupation. So basically it was sort of, these are coins issued by the military for issue and use in Rome. And on the back of that coin, if you can turn it over and get the coin to see it, take it out of the packet might be easier. I can work them out afterwards if we get mixed up. Now you can see the 2 big X's there. Let's turn the fraction round. And if you look carefully in the exerc, which is the bottom part of it, you see the letters ROM, which stands for Rome. And this XX means 20 numai, which is half of phallus. Okay? So basically the system of organisation, the monetary system was pretty straightforward. M meant 40, K meant 20, or XX. Sometimes 4 X's was used for 40 when it was like focus. 1 X meant 10, decanumion, and a V meant 5 for pentanumion. And then of course alpha and beta means 1 and 2 in Greek were 1 and 2 numai too. And these little coins sometimes were issued as well. And they're in the bronze. Of course the whole denomination system is quite different again than silver and gold. But the reason why I'm showing you these things is just not to sort of say I've got these lovely little bronze coins of Byzantine and so forth, but to show to you that if you've got the coins tagged with some sort of container or envelope, and there was an important coin, then it's important to keep a record of where it came from, who owned it, and where it's gone to. And you know, it'd be interesting to see in 100 years' time if these tickets still go with it. But surprisingly enough, I have tickets that come from, on some coins that come from the 19th century, and they've got dates on it. Sotheby's sale, December 1896, lot 444. You know, and all these things are on them, and some of them have names on the back, written by the dealer in some cases, like X Grantley collection. Now, who was Grantley? Lord Grantley was a great collector of ancient coins back in World War II period. So it's the record of the coins that's important, that and sometimes becomes more important than the coin itself. Because passing on from collection, I was watching something interesting the other day on stamps. I just discovered that YouTube has doing hundreds and hundreds of videos on stamps. You know, I never thought, no one talked about stamps on YouTube, but obviously they do. And they were spending some time talking about the famous 1 cent British Guiana that they expected to sell for big money when it was sold last year, and it only realised about $9 million US from 800.
Stanley Gibbons bought it.
That's right, and they're marketing out little bits of it. But the point was that this stamp, because of its uniqueness, has an aura of only having previously 8 owners of it, from its first being made or manufactured in 1856. And so they knew all the who has owned this coin. Now it's owned by Stanley Gibbons, and they're marketing it out for, I don't know, $10 purchases. You can own a fraction of this coin, like sharing it like 10 million shares of it or something, you know, dollar each. So that's the way they're doing it, but that's rather sad. But the reality about it is that the pedigree is important, and in that stamp we know the pedigree of its first discovery and who's ever owned it ever since. And the same applies to coins. C&G had a sale, 3-day sale, just finished 2 days ago, and 80% of the coins had pedigrees, and some of the pedigrees were very impressive, and some of these pedigrees really brought a bigger price as a result. And I think a pedigree is initially starts off probably worth 50% more than the actual coin with no name, no pedigree. And some of the pedigrees can be quite significant, going back to people who were big collectors from 100 years ago or more. They enhance the value, which is far in excess of what one would expect if it had no pedigree. Anyhow, the reason why I did this tonight was not to sort of make it interesting, to show you that many people have different ways of keeping a pedigree or record of their coins. He also, Laurie Sherwin actually had exercise books, 1-line entry for every coin. So he had a number and the coin description, as well as wrote the ticket for it, or envelope for it. Now, I don't know anyone else who does that. Not if you've got thousands of coins. But I keep some of mine on computers, and unfortunately systems change, and you suddenly find that something you were using 20 years ago is very hard to sort of reuse again, you know, so you have to sort of convert it into some other file sort of situation. But most of them are still usable, so I can find out, and I get quite a pleasant surprise sometimes. I was cataloguing a coin for a Nobles a few weeks ago, and it's going in the next auction. It was a coin from, I think it was Corinth, and I had forgotten about it, but it comes from a famous collection back in the 1920 period, and that goes back further still. And I'd forgotten all about the pedigree, but I had it written down on my file, and then I found that, of course, the coin had the tickets and everything else, and some of the tickets weren't, that confirmed its pedigree. Now, I know David would agree on pedigrees, because he's got coins that would need that good pedigree, and they enhance the value of the coin.
Some have, some haven't, you know, you can't get them all with lovely pedigrees from really old famous collections.
Yeah, but you do get them from somewhere.
You've got to get them from somewhere, and always write that down too. You're right, it's important to keep it, because as you collect, you forget where to get
Well,
them
if
from.
you get to our age, you certainly do forget where you got them from. Yeah.
Yeah.
I rattle. I've got a beautiful coin there of Claudius. It's the sturdiest of Claudius. Where did I get this from? I just don't remember. I think I got it from C&G, but I'll have to do some research on it. I just looked at it the other day with it. Well, that's my little talk. I wanted to show you the coin from the oldest treasure hoard that you can ever find.
And how you
On a ship.
and how you should use them.
And this is how you
record
can
them.
record them, yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Colin,
That's great.
did I hear somebody mention that Stanley Gimbel spent $9 million on a coin, did it?
Yeah.
On the
On
stamp.
stamp, rather?
Yeah.
The thing-
Not only they do that, and then they were trying to sell shares in it.
The trouble is that
to
they
the
only sold
collectors.
about 5% of the shares, and that's where they're stuck. They got
That's
their
right.
parent company to pay for it, and now their shares are worth 1p each.
That's what I thought they were in financial difficulty.
They've gone down so fast and rapidly. I mean, it's just
Yeah, that sounds
a nonsense idea.
a very daring business venture.
Very daring, and probably very
And every time you see that stamp, it looks worse.
well.
I mean,
Well,
it
no
was
one
never
does.
that wonderful to start with, and it looks worse.
So people say, what's so special about it? Well, the special about it's got 1 cent instead of 4 cents on it. You know, that's the only one known. But
Yeah,
there are a lot of coins which are the only ones known. And they don't attract the same fame, unfortunately, as this stamp does. But then there are probably a lot of other stamps that are only one known too. But people haven't yet worked out how important they are.
In stamps, there's a book written by a lady in Melbourne called the Mauritius Blue. And it's the blue Mauritius was, again, a very rare
1847
Stamp.
issue.
that was made by was actually produced in Mauritius by the governor because he was giving a ball and he wanted to send invitations to everyone. So he wanted to have some stamps, so they made their own stamps and
They
sent
put
them off.
post office on those ones, and they didn't
Yeah.
realise what the hell's that got. They
Anyway,
put postpaid on the other next one.
Finally,
And the next
they were used, and some got sent overseas. And this lady in Melbourne has tracked down every stamp and followed its history. And a lot of them went to France. There was some dealer in France or other who managed to get them. It was some trade that was there, and it was sort of sent to some company as postage, and they were then selling it to the stamp dealers, who then spread it all over the world. And one came up in Britain in an auction, and it sold for millions of pounds. And King George V was a stamp collector, and one of his aides was saying, "Did you see that some idiot paid £20 or 20 million for that stamp?" And he said, "Oh, it was me."
Anyway, thanks very much, Cole, for a very interesting talk.
Yeah.
That little comment that Rod made as a terrific segue into me, if nobody else wants to talk on ships and navigators. I wouldn't mind doing that. And so I've got actually two topics, pretty much like Cole had, one on ships, one on...
Don't try and sit down.
Your chair just fell over.
Your chair fell over. Don't sit down, the chair just fell over.
Oh, right, thanks for that. Yeah, that's the coat, heavy coat at the back. Yeah. Take the coat off and put this up properly. Okay. I just need to get out of here before I go. Now, I noticed that Frank showed this coin, and I might actually, if it's still there, might use his rather than mine, because mine's in a 2x2 and I don't want to see too much glare. It's just an Australian 50 cent. The Bass and Flinders coin.
Yep. Bass and Flinders.
Is it all right, or have you got a better one? Oh no, that's all right. You've seen it. You've seen a better copy with Frank without the plastic bag. This is a 200th anniversary of a famous voyage made by two navigators, explorers, circumnavigated Tasmania. And the reason, once I saw the topic of the evening, I thought, I have to talk about Flinders in particular, because a couple of weeks ago, Judy and I sneak a holiday. Haven't had a holiday for a long time, not since before COVID. And anyway, Judy said, "No, we've always wanted to go and see the Flinders Ranges." And in South Australia, anyone been there?
Yeah.
Fantastic place. So anyway, we did that. It was a quick one because we, basically from Monday to Sunday, so we wouldn't lose too much. And
You didn't drive?
no, we didn't drive. We booked a holiday and flew to Adelaide, and had an afternoon in Adelaide. The next morning, it supposed to be crack of dawn, but it was a bit late. Who should turn up but a four-wheel drive and a driver, entirely at our service for the next 5 days. Not cheap, but great. So anyway, we had a good look at the Flinders Ranges. It's a vast place. You can't see everything, but it is a lovely place, and it was a good time to see it. But more of that later. But the question is, how did they get the name Flinders? And the answer we only found out really on the last day, because if you can imagine just the general layout of South Australia, probably the most recognisable part of it is the two gulfs, the Spencer Gulf and then the York Peninsula between, then the St Vincent's Gulf. Well, it was Matthew Flinders who explored all that. And we went to this lovely park in Port Augusta, which is right up the top of Spencer's Gulf, and we saw an absolutely beautiful place called the National Australian Botanic Gardens for Arid Plants. I don't think that's exact name, but it's for all plants that thrive and live in the dry, deserty country that South Australia and some of Western Australia and around Alice Springs and all of that. And it was just a beautiful place. And I race around with my camera taking pictures of desert pea in bloom and all the various mallees and wattles that they had. And then finally, after we'd finished that, I was there for a couple of hours just doing that, we were driven round to the lookout from just outside that, which is the upper reaches of the Spencer Gulf, and you look up and down it, and there, lo and behold, is a bloody big mountain range, which is one of the main parts of the Flinders Ranges itself. And in 1802, aboard the HMS Investigator, Matthew Flinders sailed up there, and he was the first European to do so, And at that point, it's recorded in his log, at that point that where we stood, that's where he stood, 220 years ago now, and looked at this wonderful range. Now, we didn't name it the Flinders Ranges. That was named in honour of him 50 years later by the Governor of South Australia. But he did name some of the mountains there, and I can't remember all, but one in particular, Mount Remarkable. Flinders gave it that name, and that is a lovely national park in itself these days. But it's a bit of a story how the heck he got there in 1802. So I might just quickly outline his history without having to refer to anything, so just so I only get what I remember. But he was born in 1774, which is just 4 years after Cook, discovered the east coast of Australia. And, he grew up in Lincolnshire. And he had a schooling. I mean, he didn't come from a very poor family, but he wasn't a noble or anything like that, And he was given a good schooling, both primary and high school. And somehow or other, he must have read. He read Daniel Defoe, Robinson Crusoe, and from then on, his mind was made up. He was going to go to sea, right? Of course, as many young boys did, they joined the British Navy, and he had a patron who I don't know the relationship here. He was a captain in the Royal Navy. What's his name? Pasley, yes, Captain Pasley, and he was in the fighting part, as it were, and he'd already had a terrific experience in the 7 Years' War, fighting in Canada and all of that against the French, and of course French was the enemy in those days, and it wasn't long before, obviously, in 1789. How old was Flinders then? 16 or 15 or something like that. The French Revolution started, and suddenly England was at war with France. Anyway, joined the Navy round about that time, and eventually got to be midshipman, and Pasley got him on his ship, the Bellerophon, and I'll backtrack a bit if I may. His first voyage was actually with the second voyage of the guy with the bounty.
Bligh.
Yes.
Bligh, yeah. Bounty was Bligh, or
Yeah, Bligh, Captain Bligh, that's right. After Bligh had got back, after the mutiny, he was given another ship to get breadfruit from Tahiti to bring it to Jamaica for the slaves to eat. And Flinders was a midshipman on that ship. And he got the great experience. They sailed a funny way. You go from England all the way over to Tahiti, going east, and then instead of going around Cape Horn and up, I would have thought that the short way to get to Jamaica. No, he went right back, all the way back through past the Cape of Good Hope, and then up the middle Atlantic to get to Jamaica. Anyway, that was quite a sea experience for him. But after that, he went, when the war was on, he went back to join the Bellerophon under Captain Pasley, and was involved in a sea battle off the Bay of Biscay against the French Navy, French Navy, and it was not quite a win and not quite a lose, but it ended up with poor old Captain Pasley got his leg blown off by a French cannonball, survived it, and eventually promoted to Rear Admiral. This guy, they survived it. But I think that was enough experience for Flinders to say, that's not the sort of naval experience I want. He didn't want to be in wars, he just wanted to do the navigating and exploring, because he was very good. And eventually promoted to lieutenant, and eventually to commander. But let's go back now. After he came back from that battle and recuperated a bit, he then got on a ship to Australia, and on that ship was another fellow Lincolnshire guy who only 3 years older than George Bass. He was a ship's doctor, actually, and they struck up a good relation, and obviously spent a lot of time together on the sort of 9 months or whatever it took to get from London to Sydney. But that's what they did, and they started doing exploring. And then there's the story of them both in the Tom Thumb, the little rowing boat thing, and that's where they sort of discovered the Sydney around, not just Port Jackson, but up the Georges River and Botany Bay and down to Port Kembla and into Port Hacking. And they mapped all that beautifully, and they've obviously got a good idea. And then eventually they put it to them, well, we should have a look at Tasmania. So that coin now celebrates their joint trip down the coast of New South Wales. They were to go to what was called then the Furneaux Islands. I don't know if you know that term, it may not be used, but that is the group of islands where Flinders Island is. That's the biggest island in that group, but they have other islands too. A big one is Cape Barren Island, and there's about 100 islands there. And they got there, and then they decided, well, if we just go west from there and go right under and see if we can come up and back to there. Well, that's what they did. They went right round and proved that Tasmania was island. And Bass got his name attached to the strait, and Flinders got his name attached to the island. Anyway, he wrote a diary on that, and that was a great celebration for him. Went back to Sydney, and then went back to London, actually, another ship, and he proposed to the Navy that he be given command of a ship which could go and do a circumnavigation around Australia, which he did, not with Bass this time, but he was given the command of a ship called the Investigator. Now, the British Navy saved all their best ships for man of war. The Investigator wasn't in a great condition. It was a bit rotten here, and it was a bit parsimonious. And at exactly that time that was happening, Napoleon was getting a much better expedition for French explorers to go down. They went out in 2 ships, the Geographe and the Astrolabe. And the Geographe was under the command of a guy called Baudin. Anyway, so there's Flinders on his Investigator, comes down, goes right to the tip of southwestern Australia. And anyone know what's called? Cape Lewin? Anyone been there?
Yeah.
Oh, windy place. That is the join between the Indian Ocean on one side and the Southern Ocean on the other. I guess it's all Indian Ocean really, but it's a very rough place. He spent some time there and went into King George's Sound, is it, where Albany is? Yes, that's also a lovely place. Spent quite a while there. And then kept on going, essentially got the Roaring Forties to push him along. He ended up Kangaroo Island. That was a good little place, and he found, great little, you get a ship's water, he shoot a few kangaroos for dinner and all of that sort of thing, which they did. And then he decided to backtrack up a little bit, and he went to where now Port Lincoln is. He named it, that was his name. He came from Lincolnshire, right? Port Lincoln. He spent a little time there, then went up the Spencer's Gulf, and he thought, maybe there's an inland sea here, and maybe this is the outlet of the river that goes all the way out to, the Gulf of Carpentaria. Well, he was almost right, but so that's what he went up and mapped that and saw those lovely mountains, the Flinders Ranges. Came back, went back to Kangaroo Island, and then decided to go up the St Vincent's Gulf and explored that, mapped it all out, and the York Peninsula was in between the 2 gulfs, and finally. He's on his way back to Melbourne, not to Melbourne, well, it didn't exist then, but back to Port Jackson, and he saw the ship in the distance. Well, lo and behold, it was Baudin in the Geographe, the French expedition. Now, he stopped and waited for him, and they said hello to one another, and Flinders told Baudin, where you can get water and meat. And they both realised that France and Britain were probably at war. But heck, well, they didn't have a war between them, so that's what. And that place that they met is called Encounter Bay. It's just in the Murray mouth. I didn't go there this time, but there's a lot of history and coincidence too. The fact that you see a French ship at that time just happened to be there when he was there. Anyway, that was the. He wrote a big log on all of this. Finally went back to Sydney and Port Jackson as it was then, and then went right round up the Queensland coast. And at this point he was realising the Investigator was a pretty sick ship. It was starting to fall apart. So he decided to call the expedition off. He went to Timor. Probably did some repairs there, and then sort of stayed out in sea. And went down the Western Australian coast and back up. Right underneath, got the Roaring Forties again along underneath Tasmania and got back up. So that was the circumnavigation of Australia in a nutshell. Took him a while, a couple of years. Well, he decided he'd probably had enough for then. He tried to get a ship back. He got a ship back, This is where Mauritius comes in.
And got,
He
got
had to pull in,
imprisoned
he had to
for...
pull in to get some repairs done for his ship. And the French governor said, "You're a British prisoner of war," you know. And he made him stay there for 6 years and more. And by the time he did get back to England, he wrote all his journals while he was in Mauritius on the captivity. And well, I guess it wasn't to an onus of captivity or anything, but he probably had to just give his parole, and had a bit of a free time there. But nevertheless, he was married and he had a kid he hadn't seen at that point. But by the time he got back to London, he was a very sick man. And he died the following year, having gone through his papers, dedicating them to Sir Joseph Banks, who was still kicking around, and Banks was his patron, and he died. And there's a follow-up too, because they buried him in London, but in a cemetery, which is somewhere near, I don't exactly know, I haven't been there since, but exactly somewhere near the railway station of Euston. Euston was a big railway station, and the British were preparing they wanted more track for the high-speed rail. They got a new high-speed rail, so they're digging up and suddenly come to this graveyard. And they realised, I did some research, oh, look, Matthew Flinders has got to be in here somewhere. So they're digging around, they finally came across his grave. Pretty good intact, because he wasn't a poor man, he was a famous man, so his casket was still recognisable. But they couldn't stay where it was because they had to build the railway station and all of that over it. So they finally got permission from the rector of the church at his birth village in Lincolnshire. They'd take it there, and that's where it is. It was reinterred in that church where it was close to where he was born. So it's a good memorial, and if you go to England and want to look it up, then Matthew Flinders, a famous guy.
In 2014, there was hardly any mention of no celebrations in Australia of 200 years since he died. But I think Arthur Phillip died the same year.
Okay.
And
Yeah, well, it's a shame too, because he was fighting the French, dying in 1814 and not hearing about Waterloo. It was a bit of a shame, wasn't it?
Flinders was the youngest commander appointed other than Lord Nelson,
Yeah.
but he was only appointed a commander because the commander got killed or died of sickness. So Matthew Flinders got it on his own volition for what he'd done. Lord Nelson only got it because the commander.
Yeah. Well, thanks for reminding me of that. There's always more to learn about famous men, and he was the one too. There, just before I finish on this, he was the one who basically was the first to call us Australia.
Yeah.
He was the one who said, no, forget about New Holland and Terra Australis and all of that. Just call it Australia. It's more rolls off the tongue easier, and it was adopted. So I'm glad it was. We owe a lot to Matthew Flinders, I think.
I've got one, Dave.
That's that. Okay.
Thanks, David.
Let me. You got one?
Yeah, you got another one?
Oh yeah. So one
it-
takes along, I hope, but it was a mystery, and I owe it to Graham here, who approached me on the Saturday. We were both at the Ander Fair. I'll just make sure I've got this thing. What did I do with it? No, I think I put it in the bag here. Here.
Can you remember doing it? What you did?
Here we are. He said, David, can you investigate what this is? And so here we are, it's a challenge. This is the challenge for the night. See if you can work out what it is. I think it's best if I take it out of the little plastic envelope, just so it doesn't get all the reflections on the video. Oh, can you? I can't, just going to get it out. One of those little zip things.
Trying to spread them is the hardest bit.
Yeah.
Yes, do have one of those. If that's good.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what it is while Rod's struggling there.
Done.
It's clearly a piece of jewellery, and it was you can see when you look at the thing, it's it's been punched, and it's got a little hook on a bracelet or a necklace or something like that. But that's a good. If you just get as much focus as you can there.
There's the face. Yeah.
Okay. Can I, before we do that, can I just get you to flip over the other side? Probably at the same focal length, I would suggest, because that's where the date is, and it gives it
Okay,
away.
fleur-de-lis, so it's French.
Okay. Can you see up there, 1629?
Yep.
Now, you'd like to think it's a coin. I mean, there's always the problem, it may not be a coin. It may be just a copy of something, you know, artificial. But I don't believe that anyone would take a thing like that and say, okay, now, so 1629, the fleur-de-lis. Clearly French. Any suggestion as to who the picture might be on the other side? King of France at that time, anyone?
It's the Sun King, is it?
First, was it?
Let's just go back a minute.
14th?
Okay, well, if I could just borrow this for a pointer.
Louis the
Just follow through
14th?
with me.
The-
I'm on the 13th.
no, it's the 13th. There's X111 there, so it's
His name
Louis the
is
13th.
abbreviated. Yep.
Louis the 13th.
Okay, but here's where we start. L-O-Y-S. Now that's a small coin, small image, so you can't fit Lodovicus as you would say in Latin, which is Louis, but L-O-Y-S.
Louis
X-I-I-I.
13. Yeah.
Louis Tres. R.
Rex.
Day. The E has got the hole through it. So of F-R-A-N, France, et Nav, N-A-V. And the other thing is that, you see, can you just focus it just a little bit there, the N, N-A-V? Just in this area here, it's sharp. Okay, anyway, N-A-V, Navarre, that's Navarre, that's
Spain, is it?
A separate country. It was a separate country in the south of France, just crossing the Pyrenees into Spain, Navarre. The Spanish part had already been taken by Ferdinand of Aragon, and so they only left the French part, and eventually it was incorporated into the south of into France. So it was ruled from France. But Navarre, and then his father, Henry the Great, Henry IV, came from Navarre, and originally he was a Protestant. Navarre was the homeland for the French Protestants, the Huguenots, and they were suppressed by many. And but anyway, when he was offered the French throne, but you have to be, he was talking about his father now, to be a king of France, you had to be a Catholic, right? It's famous thing, well, Paris is worse than Mass. Have you heard of that? That's the famous saying from Henry IV. He was quite happy to chuck in Protestantism and become Catholic, just so he could live in Paris and be French king. All right, so there's that. Now the other side, just flip it over. We've done that side. Let's have a look at the other side.
I'll zoom back in here.
Yeah, the one with the fleur-de-lis. Let's look at the fleur-de-lis. Oh, yeah.
The other side has a fleur-de-lis.
Fleur-de-lis, yep. No. Upside down. Points up the top. That's it. Now, let's just quickly look at, see if we can find out what's happening.
Whoops. Tipped it too much.
Yeah. Where's it drifting? Oh, it's here. Hard to hold, is it? Anyway, starting at the top, there's a little cross, and then the word double, double in French, double, and then tournoi, and then the date, and that's it. Double tournoi. Now, first of all, when I read that, I said, can't be gold. Can't be gold. Double tournoi is a copper coin. It's tuppence. That's a French tuppence, which was less than at that stage there was you had 12 French pennies to 1 English penny. So it's a very, very low value coin even then. So clearly what's happened is they've taken this copper coin, corrosion and all probably, but they may have dipped it in something to strip or get it bright copper again, and then plated it with gold, thin gold. So it's a gold plate. It's not that was the first realisation. It's not a gold coin, just gold plated thing. But is it a real coin at all? Well, the answer is you've got to look in the catalogue, and I'll tell you about the catalogue. Give you that. Fortunately, and it does help to have a catalogue, it's a very, very good book, very good, lovely book to have. Just, you know, in case you're wondering where you'll find out about French coins, there's lots of categories of French coins, and this is a catalogue of French royal coins. Okay, these are the coins issued under the kings of France, and you can see here this is volume 2. Volume 1 is coins from Louis Capet up to about 1500, which is like the medieval section, and volume 2 is the early modern from 1500 to 1793. What happened in 1793? Poor old King Louis XVI got the guillotine, and that was part of the French Revolution, and from that period the French Republic started. So yeah, and that'll be another catalogue. But Jean du Plessis, the very famous French author, wrote wonderfully and very careful cataloguer. So I now know the date. I can just work out in here that Louis the 13th it has to be. So you start going through and you look at the copper coin. So it's got it gold, silver, copper, and let's see now. We're looking here at the double tournoir. Here we are, and it turned out to be exactly this one, 1366. So just that should do that now. And I want to show you this too because it's a good example of how to understand French cataloguing. It's not difficult. So 1366, du Plessis 1366 in the Royal Coins catalogue, that is it. You see a picture of it there. You have to zoom in a little bit to that. Now let's just read the inscription. So that's exactly what I said. L-O-Y-S, Louis, abbreviated, X-I-I-I, Louis XIII, A de Front et Nav. Now they've got this wrong. They've got this wrong. It's N-A-V, and then you look at the coin, and the A is upside down. So it's actually N-A-V. The A, upside down, is the mint mark for Paris. So it was struck in Paris. Immediately that you know. And then it's the bust of the king to the right, facing right. Lauré, that means he's got a laurel wreath on his head. Drapé, that means he's got a toga on, draped. And cuirassé means he's got a breastplate on. Avec fraise, now that stumped me for a while. Avec fraise, what's fraise? With a strawberry. What does that mean? But in fact it turns out that's they use that for describing the ruff. The fact that he's got this lacy collar, the ruff. And it says there's different mint marks in the exergue, like that's the A, like we found. And then reverse, the little cross with a double tournoir. And then it says trois li, 3 li, posé deux et one, so two
and one
above and one underneath. And double the fifth type, a la fraise, with the ruff, between 1627 and 1635. So it is a real coin, I believe. It's not an artificial one, but it was a very cheap one, and they just turned it into jewellery.
Gold plated for jewellery purposes.
So anyway, that's the story of that one. Thank you very much.
Nice little find.
I'll leave it there.
Very
Well,
entertaining.
I had one.
I'll
Sorry,
come
before you
against
go,
that,
just before you go.
All right.
So, yeah, there's nothing. It's just later on in his reign, Louis, this was a division between hand-struck and machine-struck coins in the middle of his reign. And in 1640, he emitted this lovely gold piece, the Louis d'Or, and you can see how coin manufacture came along. Not that these weren't bad, but the Louis d'Or is a great coin to have, and you get 10 Louis d'Or and 8 Louis d'Or, which he made for his private gambling purposes, and they're very valuable, like €500,000 type things.
Doors gold, Louis of gold.
That is a pretty coin. So, sorry, now up you come.
Okay.
Flip it over.
All right. I'll see you again sometime. I thought it was
Paris,
very
Yeah, John.
entertaining. Thank you.
Yes. Good to see you. Yep. Paris Mint. Right.
So there you go, off you go.
Thank you.
You've got something else,
I've
mate?
only got one item, a very recent item, because it was in our auction. And I won it. I had to fight Ian Seisland for it. It was lot number 134. It was Great Britain's set of 2011. And they put out quite a few coins, so. Oops. Get it better focus that way. So there's a commemorative set, and then there's the normal set. And why I want it is they're bimetallics. 3 bimetallics in the one set. That's the normal bimetallic that goes out every year, or used to. I think there's a few years where they haven't issued them. And there's the 2 commemoratives. These 2. But one of them has a ship on it. And it was for the Mary Rose.
Mary Rose, okay.
So the 2 commemoratives in 2011 was the Mary Rose and the King James's Bible. So it's the anniversary of sort of both of those different anniversaries. So very hard £2 coins to find. There are some in circulation, but most of the time you have to buy them from the Royal Mint at a premium. And they haven't made any in the last 3 or 4 years. They haven't made any of the commemoratives they haven't circulated them. They've made them for purchase, but you can't get them from circulation. Because I have friends over there who I would swap with there, but they were saying, sorry,
The next one's
can't
about
do it, so
childhood.
that was my contribution for the night.
Thank you.
We can now have coffee.
Just before you turn the camera off.
The only thing I can remember about Mary Rose, Mary Rose sat on a pin, Mary Rose.
Just a recent.
Have you seen the Mary Rose? I'm not sure which harbour it's in. I've seen it myself when I've been in years ago. Yeah, a bit of harbour impression. Mary Rose.
That was my recent acquisition from Sunday at the Ander Fair.
Very good, a nice one.
First issue. In that period, at the time.
So I'm correct in saying that's is
About
it?
1915.
It is a 1915.
I think it is.
Yeah. Because when I was reading one of our reference books, they talk about the M, but then further down I was reading, they talk about the M being the first and the D being the last suffix.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
M's a prefix and D's a suffix, yeah.
So it is that way, okay.
Yeah.
And then they were talking about the ones, the different ones on the
You have
notes.
to look at, not Greg,
Different fonts.
What
Yeah.
Mick Ronald describes them as.
And then I noticed on the back,
Collins Allen are the signatures.
yeah,
Yeah, that's the signatures, the first series.
on the back, I don't know if it'll come up. Oh, I might even take it out. Where's the little trap door? There it is.
Leave it in, we can see through this.
Through the plate?
Yeah, you don't want
Play for two.
to damage it.
It doesn't come up too, but when you look at it with the glass, that red actually says sovereign, half sov.
This one.
Where's the half
Well,
sov?
see how it looks all liney and watermark sort of
Oh,
thing?
yeah.
It actually has the words half sovereign repeated. So you can just starting to see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be one of the earliest ones
Half
that did
sovereigns.
something like that, or
It's all the way through, actually. It's half sovereign in the background
yeah.
there as well, so
Does
it's
anyone-
in the paper.
Is that anyone know of an earlier note that has that sort of?
No, not in
Printing
Australian
through it?
series, no.
It is print, it's not a watermark.
No, it is printing.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was.
I know there's some other notes that of more modern times have names and things in waves when you got to get right in with a glass to
the
look
thing
at it.
about the sovereign, of course, and using it is showing it has a sort of relationship to the gold half sovereign, which was sort of become out of use by the Depression period. And they weren't allowed to put it on anymore.
Yeah, 26, 25, 26?
Well, they got off the gold standard 33, but I
Yeah.
think they'll be earlier they stopped using it.
Well, the Bradbury notes, what the 10 shillings in the pound came out in
I
14.
don't know whether you ever got a copy of the catalogue of the Alan Nicholson collection.
We might
It's
have.
probably the first big note collection that's ever been sold in this country. I catalogued all that, so I got to know all this stuff.
Yeah.
With all the details, and particularly of the private notes that were issued by various firms and so forth in the 30s and 20s and 50s and all that, which had a big collection.
The notes came out in 14, and this one's 15, because they didn't want to have gold in the pockets of the dead soldiers. That's
Yes.
why we got the notes. And the notes stayed on forever afterwards, because the government rather had the gold in the banks and prepared to pay everyone promises to pay.
Promising
anyhow, you were a shilling a day, isn't it, they were getting.
Yeah.
So it had to be.
Yeah, but I mean, the officers had more than a shilling
One
a
of the
day.
things we observed from the big hoard that we wrote an article about on the that was found, buried in 1921, was the fact that there was a predominance of English shillings amongst it. English shillings only. 2 shilling pieces weren't there. Half crowns were definitely not a event. But the shillings were there, and I think a lot of people came back from England from the war with their shillings in it, the King's shilling, and they had to spend it, so they spent it here in Australia. That was published by the NAA, you know, that big, what I did with Walter Bloom on that hoard. That was some 5,000 pieces in it. It was quite a good hoard to study. Studying that, I won't talk about that hoard now because it's not really relevant, but the most important thing about it is that if you get a big enough sample of coins and weigh them, you can actually, and you didn't know the successive range of dates, their average weight of each group shows that there's a linear progression of wear. And so you could put the things in order. And that technology of weighing a large hoard of coins was very useful to sorting out the Ptolemaic coins in the 3rd century BC, because of the fact that they had to, you didn't know the dates, they had all these funny letters on them, but they didn't mean anything. But if you could put them into some order, they could be a measure of the chronology, and they were. And so it was sorted out that way, by average weighing of, 40, 50 of the coins, each was slightly different. Higher and higher the newer the coin was.
It's very
Does
nice.
that make sense to you?
Hopefully.
So, you're into pre-decimal banknotes.
Just those two. I've got that one and I've got the other one. So I'm happy with the half sob notes.
I've got a cousin down in Milton who's just moved into Milton down there on a property there, and he's a big banknote collector, and I didn't even know that until he rang me up and told me about it. So now I bring him down to Cab Magazine and a few other things like that so he can learn all about these things. He's been spending big money for them and the auctions. So you better learn about what they are. These banknotes and how they fit into the system. You know.
The noble catalogue will tell you all the information.
Yeah, I know. But he needs to have a secondary information too, which all helps.
Okay, well, thanks, Graham, for that, and we'll, thanks everybody, and I'll close the meeting and let's have a cup of tea.